This time on Meet the Heroes, we drive a car that's rare, iconic, and a true game changer. It's a car that brought a turbocharger to the M badge, and if you're quick, it's even a car you can buy. Morning, mate.
Morning.
How are you?
Very good, you?
All right, sun is shining, birds are singing. Where are we going?
Today we are off to Sasso Automotive. Oh my God, that's so...
Right. That's worrying because you are ginger. Have you put your Fact 50 on today?
No.
Apart from great coffee and a fine Italian welcome, why are we going there?
Well, they've got one of my favourite M cars that has ever been made. The BMW 1M.
So you think the 1M, which is a brilliant car, don't get me wrong, is one of your favourite M cars. Wouldn't you rather have where it all started? The M1 of 1978, designed by the genius Paul Bracq, finessed by Giugiaro, mid-engined supercar, although 277 horsepower isn't that super, is it really? But what a great looking car though.
Yeah, I appreciate the M1 and everything that it did for BMW with the motorsport, that kind of thing. But no, for me it'd be the 1M.
But let's go through some of the brilliant M cars. I think, to be honest, for me, all the best M cars kind of finish when we get to the F badges, when we get to the F model codes. So if you look at what came next, which was 1979, which was the M535i, that started this genre, you know, super saloon, ridiculously fast performance in a relatively practical family car. You've got to say, really, that is M535. If you're talking about cars that carry an M badge, although actually if you rewind, it goes all the way back to the 2002 Turbo, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But then, of course, in 1983, you had the M635 CSI, and that was a quick car, and I think a very beautiful car, because I think the 6 Series, again, I think that's a Paul Bracq car as well. Beautiful looking thing, loads of performance even in standard trim. In the M version, again, over 280 brake. What a cool car that is.
Off-centre exhaust. Drives me nuts.
Drives me nuts, actually, as well. But they're rare, aren't they? Because they only made 5,859 of those. That is a rare car.
What, of the M635 CSI?
They did.
Or for our American viewers, the M6.
Yes, they called it the M6 over there.
Yeah, they did, yeah.
But I think for me, it all comes together. The definitive M car for me is the E92 M3 of 86. That has never been better for me. Why is that not your favourite M car?
Well, I've got an E46 M3 CS myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love the E30s. I think that's where my love for BMW stemmed from. Was my father and I used to go to a local independent near us.
Yeah.
And there would be E34s. There would be the 6 Series. I can't remember the model code for those. What are they? E31 is it?
E31,
yeah,
I think,
E31, yeah. Still.
But it was interesting. I was listening to Smith and Sniff podcast the other day, and Richard Porter came up with a really good point that when it comes to E numbers, everyone knows which model code, E36, E30, E31, E34, 5 Series. Of course, that was the M5 to me, the ultimate super saloon. That was peak for me, E34. When you get to the F badges, I haven't got a clue what any of the F codes are.
Well,
apart from F82, F84, that's about it.
Yeah,
we should talk about the anomaly in the family, shouldn't we? Because every M car had some kind of great body styling, particularly when you got to the E30, so wider arches. Every other M product has always had wide arches, apart from the E36.
Yeah, the E36 missed out on the old wide arches.
But I wonder why that. I could never understand why in the 90s. Why was that car narrow body, same as the production 328 or the 328 Sport?
Yeah,
if you do a 328 Sport next to an M3,
yeah, same front bumper.
Yeah,
yeah, it's true.
And that always the special thing about buying an M car was the fact it always was fatter, wider, different body styling. And I give the 1M that. The 1M does really have a very nice looking body shape, I think.
Oh, it's gorgeous. I love it.
Just so you know, people watching, Johnny never fuels any car. He's such a motor trader in that regard. Any car you get into that May has driven has no fuel in it.
You can go for miles on a damp tank.
Well, come on, drive very gently and slowly to Sasso, where this car awaits. But don't go too fast because we haven't got the petrol for it. There you go, Johnny. The BMW 1M, the ultimate driving machine.
I love it.
I know you love this car, don't you? I think you have an almost unnatural amount of love for this car. So I think this is a brilliant, I love all M cars, and I do think this is good, but to me, this is a very, very clever bit of marketing and parts bin special. But shall we talk about the fact BMW, to me, deserved the right to make this car because BMW almost created this idea with a 2002. Even before Saab, you know how much I love Saab with a passion. It's a religion for me, Saab. And everyone regards the Saab 99 Turbo as the first production turbocharged car, or saloon at least. Actually, before that was the 2002.
2002, yeah.
And that was little front engine with a turbocharger, rear wheel drive. And that was always the appeal. And that's why they claim the ultimate driving machine, because you do get a great balance with the rear wheel drive BMW.
Great launch.
Great launch. And that's why they were always such good competition cars, weren't they? So if you look at BMW's competition history, what they achieved, and obviously we always know British touring car, they've always done well in that, through the E30, E36 and beyond. DTM, absolutely nailed everything there.
Yeah.
All of the Le Mans and endurance stuff. Of course, they did F1 engines as well, Pro Car, etc. The only thing they didn't do any good at really was rallying, wasn't it?
Yeah, there was a bit of an E30 rallying, wasn't it?
I think they won one event, I think it's Tour de Course, I think they won once. Something in the 30s with the old 328, the original late 30s 328, and that's about it. But this car, the 1 Series though, I mean, this is obviously the ultimate evolution of that chassis, but this was, don't forget, designed to be the affordable entry level into the BMW range. This was actually, this box, the replacement for the BMW 3 Series Compact, wasn't it?
Yeah, and the Compact was a bit of a funny one, wasn't it?
Tiny eyes, so tiny and small.
In terms of people really didn't like it at the time, did they? And with the cars naturally getting bigger because of airbags and things like that, where this is probably more in the size of the E30,
Yeah.
isn't it?
It's
Yeah.
tiny little car, and they're very light. These only weigh 1495 kilos, I think. They're not a heavy car. But to me, the E36 Compact always looked slightly disproportionate because you had the normal length front of an
Yeah.
E36 and then a crazy back. And I think
I
they've
still
even got
call it-
E30 trailing arms, I think, on the back of those as well. I think they're a mismatch of...
Are they?
I think they are. I think it is the previous generation
You're a
back end.
fountain of knowledge.
Well, it's probably wrong.
You are technically correct. The best kind of correct.
We'll check that. If it's right, we'll put it in the video.
If that's right,
We'll just put a
keep it
cutaway
in.
of some music. But do you remember? I remember the advert for the 1 Series, not the 1M, but the 1 Series. I think it was called Tortoise Foal Trike. Because they were saying in this class, in this shopping car class, because don't forget you could get this as a diesel and a tiny 4-cylinder petrol as well. The whole point was a tiny, tiny car with front engine, rear wheel drive. And that was actually quite a unique proposition because everything else you buy that was this small was front engined, front wheel drive. But this evolved, didn't it? The whole thing evolved from 116Ds, which is basically sitting in the same cabin. And that's my problem with this car though. You know, when you sit inside this car, and we'll come to interior in a minute, there are shades of plastic that are exactly the same as a 1 Series 116D.
It's had a bit of Alcantara chucked at it, which I think is fine. I quite like the simplicity, especially with, if you compare the interior of this car compared to newer generation BMWs, it's just so many buttons, just so many things going off in modern cars.
Yeah.
Where it's kind of nice, because this is the last of the old kind of car, but a modern car, if you know what I mean. Before that crossover, before it just got way too busy.
I would agree with that. There's a simplicity in this. There's a simplicity in the dash design. There's a simplicity in the instrumentation. And I like the fact this particular car is a non-nav car as well.
Definitely.
Because it's just uncluttered and unfettered, isn't it? The whole of the interior is everything you need to go quickly. It's got very sort of cursory steering wheel controls, but not many. And kind of everything you need to drive fast, nothing you don't. So I can really see the appeal of this car in like last of a line, before they got very big, very heavy. And yeah, the cars have more power than this now, but they don't have the small footprint. They don't have the lightweight.
As you say, I mean, 1,495 kilos or whatever it was is not particularly a heavy car. So that's Mark 5 GTI kind of weight, isn't it? And they were 200 brake. These are 335 or 340.
And that's, and also dynamically as well, because the packaging is so perfect, because you've got that front engine, rear wheel drive.
Yeah.
Tortoise Foal Trike. Do you remember the launch back in 2010?
No.
You don't? Are you too young? You were still at school?
No. Yeah.
You wish. But it was launched in 2010, massive critical acclaim. I remember it came onto the showroom floor in 2011, and they pretty much all sold immediately. There was price gouging, a bit like the GR Yaris that's around us now. People taking 10 grand profit out of these off the floor over and above the margin.
Well, that's the thing, because they were going to cap at 2,700 units for the worldwide market. And then because there was so much interest in the car, they ended up doing just over 6,300.
Yeah. Manufacturers always do that, don't they?
Yeah, but I suppose...
Cleo Williams, anyone?
Yeah, Cleo.
Oh, this limited edition car. What's that? Do you want to buy some more? Yeah, we'll just make it
Yeah,
more.
just double the numbers in a bit.
It's just a bit more limited now than it was before.
Yeah.
It's even more limited now. We've made more of them.
But for 1 year that the car was just manufactured, it sold out straight away, didn't it?
Well, we only got 450. That's what's nice about this. If you are looking for a truly collectible car, the UK only got 450 right-hand drives, 3 colours, and you'll know the colour names. I know you will.
Valencia Orange,
Yeah.
Sapphire Black and Alpine White.
There you go. So this is one of only 150 in the Sapphire Black. I think it's a very nice colour. It's got a very lovely metallic flip that you probably can't see on camera, but if we take it out into the sunshine, it pops, doesn't it? It's really nice.
They made, considering there was 450 for the UK, they made 740 for the US market and 220 for the Canadian market. So
It's a rare old bird, isn't it, really?
Yeah, I mean, bearing in mind the size of America, it's actually, 740.
We got more per capita.
We got more, per capita, yeah. They just went down a storm, but they were a skunkworks car. So for those people who aren't aware, skunkworks is basically like an after-hours car, isn't it?
It's when all the employees do naughty things with engineering bits, don't they? So they
When the
finish-
suits aren't at work.
It's like that scene in the A-Team when they get locked in a cupboard, don't they? With like, I've got a back axle off an M3 and I've got a 116D. Klaus, he is shaping the wings. And then they come up with this, didn't they? It's pretty cool.
Yeah, but I mean, another really famous M car, which was a skunkworks car as well, was the Z3M.
Yeah.
Well, the Z3M Coupe, shall we say, because the Z3M Roadster had quite a lot of chassis flex in it, and that had the E96 M3 engine in the 3.2.
If I was being unkind, I would say that you could argue that the styling of the Z3M Coupe was notably styled in a cupboard after work.
Yeah, but it's known as the clown shoe because of the shape of it.
It's kind of like they almost went, yeah, that'll do.
I like it.
I do.
I
You
really
can't
like
say it's
it.
the most classically elegant sports car design, can you, the clown shoe?
No, but it's so cool. There was nothing like it. And it outsold the Roadsters 3-1.
That's true, because it's more usable.
Yeah.
But that brings us neatly to the styling of this. And what was very good, I think, about this car is they returned to form, obviously, after the E46. They realised that fat M cars are the ones that everybody wants to buy.
Yeah, there are quite a few little bits that are kind of a nod to the 46 on these. You've got the CSL style wheels, haven't you?
Yeah, you've got the gills as well.
Yeah,
on
the
side.
gills, yeah.
But you've got this, what they call the air curtain on the front, so you've got these 3 intakes, and this actually channels, this little duct here, this actually fires high pressure air over the wheels, and that reduces turbulence. You've got this lovely wider wing, 55mm wider than the standard car. A lot of aluminium used in all of the chassis components as well, dampers, arms, lots of aluminium there. All the way down to the back, past the aero mirrors that you got on this as well.
Which then filtered into the later M cars.
Yeah, so that becomes like a styling trope, doesn't it, that you see
Oh, yeah,
later on.
definitely.
And then coming around to the back, again, beautiful fat rear haunch. You've got the 2 outlets there, the 4 exhausts, the lovely little sculpt in the bumper. It is a pretty car, isn't it?
That's gorgeous. I love it.
We should have a look at the engine. We can't talk about an M car and not look at the engine. I'll let you pop it, Johnny,
Thank you.
without even looking.
Yeah, look.
Oh, look at that. What a pro. So 340 brake, 0 to 60 in 4 seconds, which is not slow. But bearing in mind other people have done it, why didn't they fit a V8, Johnny? Come on.
Well, actually, the V8 is a shorter block and it sits actually further back in the bulkhead, so it's actually better for the weight distribution. If you look at the engine, it is slightly forward over the wheels.
A bit
but
Audi-esque that almost, isn't it? Its positioning.
They used the M54 instead of the M55 because the 55 was a single turbo, the 54 was a twin turbo.
Yeah.
Plenty of brake horsepower, so easily modified to get like good gains from them. Kind of a bit sacrilege modifying a 1M now, maybe.
Yeah, the people that have done it, because you do wonder, don't you? We will talk about values a little bit later on, but the people that have done the V8 conversions, I wonder if they secretly wish they'd still got their original motor in, because they'll be the cars that make all the money.
Yeah, I mean, it will be examples like this, full history, low mileage, completely standard. But Chris Harris has a black one himself, and he modified his. Litchfield did some work on it for him a few
he
years
did.
back. And I don't necessarily think it's, if you've got a higher mileage example and it is reversible, I would enhance it. But as we were discussing about buying a 135.
Yeah. Johnny and I have been looking on Auto Trader this morning because we really fancy one of these, but we haven't quite got the 60 grand you need to get into one. And we found this morning, might still be here when the video comes out, 135 with arches.
Yeah, and it's got the 1M diff,
Yeah.
suspension, all the bits and bobs off it. But it's 15 grand.
I know.
And it's 460 brake. But it's not a manual, it's auto with paddle shift. But would you
still would, wouldn't you?
Yeah, oh, you would, yeah, for 15 grand, yeah.
Seems like a bit of a bargain, really.
Kind of tempted.
I am. What should we look out for? If we buy one of these then, there aren't that many ever for sale at any one time, but when you are, where should we look? What are the problems that you found when you've been selling these?
The M54s are actually really quite resilient engines. As long as the cars have got maintenance. I mean, M cars, even though they are a performance car, even 46s, things like that, they can do the miles. I mean, there's even 36s, or 36 M3s out there with over 200,000 miles. They are held back a bit. You know, that car isn't under stress at that brake horsepower.
But how do they respond to tuning? Because that's the thing with the normally aspirated cars. You can only do so much. You can only get so much power out of a normally aspirated car. But with these, obviously, almost the sky's the limit because you can just keep winding up boost.
That's the thing. So you can get this easily 600-700 brake horsepower.
Yeah.
Okay, there is a budget attached to it, but to get it nearer to the 500, it wouldn't take a lot. You can just get something like a DMS remap, and it'll put it 450 plus.
And what are the internals good for in terms of how far you can take them on, say, standard?
Yeah, so like stock internals, probably 5, maybe a bit more.
And that's probably enough, isn't it? In the car this short, because I think it's quite short and square, isn't it? This car?
But this is what I'm saying in terms of weight. If you think that the Golf GTI Mark V was 200 brake horsepower, similar weight. This is 340, so it's a fair chunk again. Plus a remap, you're over double of a Mark V Golf.
It's crazy.
And it's rear-wheel drive.
But as ever with all of these things now, if you want the money in the car, it's just a completely standard car.
Completely standard, but they just look so cool, which is why I think if you did want to modify one, go 135 and do it, which is what people have done. There are a couple of V8s out there. There was a girl who ran a green one.
I remember, is it Nina?
Yeah, so this was years ago, and she built, I don't know if her car was based on a 120D or a 135 or something, but she put the E92 V8 in it.
Yeah.
So the 4-litre V8.
Because this car, I mean, it's a great car anyway, it's one of the greats, but if this had a V8, to me this would be one of the greatest M cars ever. Because it would be tiny car with a V8 in it.
There are a couple of people, there is a genuine 1M with a E92 V8 conversion as well. It makes me wonder why people would do that with the values, unless something went wrong with the engine.
Well, yeah, if you blew your engine and you had one sitting there in a breakers, you'd be quite tempted, wouldn't you? Because especially in layout terms, having a V8, because it is lower and further back.
Yeah, it's a shorter block.
Yeah. Makes sense, doesn't it? Because that's just a straight 6, isn't it? So
yeah, it sits further back in the bulkhead. So
let's do it. Let's buy this one. Let's go halves and ruin it just to upset everyone. We should have a look inside because this is very blissfully simple, as you say, isn't it? Lovely.
It came with one interior, didn't it? It didn't matter what colour exterior you had. It was, there's your 3 colours, and that is your interior, whether you want it or not. They all had black leather with orange stitching and Alcantara over the Speedo, a little bit on the dash, door cards, gear gaiter, handbrake gaiter, and that was it.
And that's it. But again, it's a simplicity. I suppose it brings it down to a sensible market price. Now, Marco, who's selling this car here at Sasso, he was saying he wishes this was a nav car because he reckons it would be more desirable as a nav car. I personally think the minimal nature of not having nav in the car, I think it's better. And also a 2010 nav, 2011 nav, it's not all that, is
It's
it?
awful. The thing is, with the 1Ms that had the nav built in, they had a hump in the dash with the screen built in. This has just got like a little glove compartment.
Do you know what I like about this car? Is the dashboard architecture is very, very reminiscent of E36, E46. It's got that family feel, hasn't it? This is the last of the simple, clean, uncluttered dashboard with lots of little buttons before we get into big screens, and which I think is obviously it's progress, you can't halt it. But this looks and feels like the interior of BMW to me.
Yeah, one of the things that I loved about the 1 Series and the 46 is that rounded Speedo surround.
Yeah.
And when you do get into, when I get into my 46 CS, I love it.
Yeah.
It's just, I'm actually getting rid of the doubled-in sat-nav as mine.
Are you really? What are you putting in instead? Gramophone?
I'm going to put like a BMW business.
Well, I want to know when that's going to happen. You know, like with Singer obviously take 964s and they backdate them to look like pre-74 cars. When are people going to start doing that with like interior? So you take out your doubled-in sat-nav unit and you put in a 8-track.
Yeah. I just hate older navigations. So
well, they're like CFAX, aren't they? The graphics on them.
Oh, it's horrendous.
It's always as the bird flies, isn't it? It's always CFAX graphics.
Well, and
also the road probably wasn't like that 10 years ago, and now it's 20 years later.
You're driving through a field.
Yeah. That's normally just the way you drive. That's nothing to do with the nav journey. Because I've got an old Bentley Arnage 2002 Mulliner, and that's got a factory sat nav in it, and it is literally like someone's etch-a-sketching you to work.
Etch-a-sketching you to work.
That's how good the graphics are.
That's a great saying.
It's terrible. That hashtag first world problems. Oh, the sat nav in my Bentley is no good. That looks like something that fitted at the docks to me. That doesn't look very. I know it is legit.
Yeah.
They didn't really kind of blow the budget on that, did they?
And they couldn't even be asked to number them. No. So it's just like, we'll just make one plaque.
Because that's really unusual, isn't it? Normally, for manufacturers, a car this rare and this desirable, they would number them and they'd make a big thing, wouldn't they, in a plaque?
Aventador, Lamborghini Aventadors, they did that with the SVJs. It's just says one of.
But they did with the Clio Williams. I know they kept making them, but every time you were buying one of 200, you thought you were special till the next 200 came out.
Yeah, well, that's one of 450 for.
Genuinely 450 though, isn't it? But what we should do now, I think we've spoken about it and how wonderful it is, we should take it for a drive.
We shall. Oh, I'm so excited by this.
It's just so together. Oh, what a lovely noise. Now it's still quite cold, so I'm just going to let it warm up, let a bit of heat get around the transmission and the engine.
So mechanically sympathetic,
But immediately, this just feels very familiar to anyone that's driven E36, E46. This is of the family, isn't it? It's just got that feel.
I love it.
Doesn't it ride brilliantly though?
It's not harsh at all, is it?
It's just incredibly compliant. The things that's coming back to me straight away, you do feel every little bit of the road, but in a great way, so you're feeling everything back through the steering. It does actually tramline a little bit on poor surfaces, doesn't it? That's the wider track, I guess. Because you've got a car that's much wider than the car it's based on. But the steering is so positive. What I love about this is rack and pinion with hydraulic, because almost every car is electric power steering now.
Yeah, I think a lot of people criticised the steering feel when it was new.
You don't really hear or feel the turbochargers at low revs, do you?
No, but where is it supposed to come in at? 1500?
Well, BMW reckon 450 newton meters was available from 1500 RPM, and there's another 50 newton meters available when you hit the overboost. Obviously, we're driving very much within the legal speed limit today, and also very, very conscious that this is a 16,000 mile, incredibly low mileage example, and it's also Marco stock, so we're treating it with respect, because one of you people watching this video might want to buy this. What a beautiful thing. And also the driving position, so this is a very small car and I'm a very big lad. There's a huge amount of legroom in this, isn't there? Because I think for a car this size and weight, 340 horsepower for the average driver, that is all the power you ever need. I know people tune in for more, and I'm sure on a racetrack makes every bit of sense in the world, but as a B-road car that you can drive on the motorway, thrash down the country lane, just have an awful lot of fun with a respectable amount of talent.
Yeah.
That's all you need, isn't it?
300 to 400 brake is ample for a road car, isn't it?
And also, if you're an average driver, that's as much power as you'll ever want.
Yes, definitely.
All the people say I've got a 700 horsepower this or an 800 horsepower that. There's no way, unless you are obscenely talented, you're getting all of that out of the car anyway.
No, not at all. No.
Yeah. You could use this. I mean, you can see the whole concept of this car, can't you? This is a really lovely little sports car that you could take to the track, but you could daily drive this. I mean, obviously, whoever's owned this car really hasn't. This car is beyond immaculate, isn't it? It's so clean, so perfect. There's not a mark on the bodywork. There's not a scratch or an imperfection in here. This car is pretty much like walking into a showroom in 2011, 11 years ago, putting your 50 grand down, or a bit more.
Or a bit more if they.
Yeah, you'd have to pay over the odds for these, probably 60 grand down, and walking away with a brand new 1M. We should talk about the fact that 1M, obviously because they couldn't use M1, could they? They already used that.
No, that's why it's got on the back. It's just got a normal M badge. It hasn't actually got a 1M badge because they, out of respect for the M1 and the heritage, it was just unfortunate that it had already been taken. But it was the first M car, wasn't it? So it was M1.
I actually want one of these now. You know what? I always thought, I know Meet Your Heroes is all about cars that we genuinely believe are heroic. But can I be honest? I always thought these were a tiny bit overrated until I've driven one. You know, this morning, if you said, would you spend 60 grand on a 1M, I'd have said no. Now, having spent a little time with it, I'm seeing the appeal. I have to say, I'm really seeing the appeal. I'm just going to do a little rush up. Look at that, though. Oh, the mid-range punch. Just completely lag-free, isn't it? Just for overtaking. It's just there. It's effortless. It's easy. It's everything you want.
You like it, don't you?
I very much like this car. So thank you so much for watching this episode of Meet the Heroes. Do join us next time for more of the same, more exciting and iconic cars. Don't forget to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell. And if you like the sweet merch that Johnny and I are wearing, head over to the BeFastR.com website and you could look as good as two slightly overweight middle-aged men.